Want to welcome in a very special guest here right now, coach of Rutgers wrestling, Scott Goodale. Good morning, Coach.
Good morning, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, thanks for taking a few minutes. I know you're busy this time of year, but we really appreciate you coming on board and giving us some insight into a situation we have down here in South Jersey. Not sure if you heard about it, but one of our local football teams, a couple of players got in trouble for a Snapchat video, kind of trash talking between another team that a parent saw, sent it to one of the schools. So now it's a big situation. And I kind of wanted to get a college coach's perspective on social media in this day and age, and what it means to these high school players when they do something that they probably shouldn't be doing on social media. So give me your take as a highly successful college coach on, some advice for these high school kids and what it really means, how it can stick with them for years to come.
Well, first I was listening to you. Obviously, I'm on the way up here to practice, but I was listening to you guys, and you're right. It's 2018. Times have absolutely changed. It's part of your job as a coach. It's part of your job as a parent. I have a high school, my son plays high school football right now for a pretty big program at Tom's River High School North. So it's something I deal with every day. Not only that, I deal with our guys. There's 30 guys on our roster.
Right.
Social media and how you handle social media is a part of a coach's job. And I don't think I'm going to stop it. I don't think anybody's going to stop it. But there has to be education, and there has to be constant communication and dialogue on what you can say and what you can't say. And anytime a big-time topic comes up, whether it's a rivalry game, whether it's politics, whether it's a same-sex situation, whatever comes up, there's got to be communication with your team and your program on what you can. And the best thing is to say nothing. Said nothing. And once you hit send, it's out there. And listen, I've been guilty of it. I've been guilty of things I've said, nothing crazy, but relating to sports and college programs and, the Oregon Ducks wearing uniforms. They don't have a wrestling program. That frustrates me that they play a football game in new uniforms every single weekend. I said something about that. Next thing you know, I'm getting called into my athletic director's office.
Wow.
So you got to be really, really educated and smart about what you say. But you hear all the time, the high school coach, and I don't know Coach Saka down there, but, I guess he's been around for a long, long time. It doesn't matter. There's somebody on that staff that's young and understands this world we live in today when it comes to social media. Make it their job. But there's got to be constant communication and education on what you can and can't say, and there's going to be consequences if you're not doing it right.
Coach, how much of this falls on the shoulders of the parents? I mean, obviously these kids, the way they talk to each other in the hallways or when they're together, there's a lot of slang, a lot of stuff they pick up from, different musical artists and things like that. But it's hard. I think it's hard sometimes for them to understand that you can't say those things when you're not in that personal setting when nobody else is around. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Again, I think it's the parents. The parents have to be involved in your kids' social media, unfortunately. And that doesn't sit well with my 17-year-old daughter. But it's something you have to do. You need to be involved in what they're saying and how they're speaking. And they need to know you can't talk. I get it all the time. Listen, Dad, you're 46 years old. You don't know. No, I do know. And that's just an excuse. You can't, what you say now is judged and looked at, and no matter who you are, it's out there. So it falls on the parents, and it's a cop-out if they're not involved. They need to be involved. And then, it goes back to, what about the kids who don't, they come from a single-parent home, or they come from, they're adopted, whatever the case might be. It doesn't matter. That's where kind of a coach has to step in and be involved in it. It's a problem. It's an epidemic. It is what it is, and we have to deal with it as coaches and parents. And that's just kind of my stand on it. It's my opinion on it, and I don't know if people will agree with that or not, but that's kind of where I come from and the kind of way we deal with our kids.
Coach, talk about how you actually communicate this with your wrestling team. Obviously, the NCAA probably has a little bit more training than high school sports does, but how does it exactly go down when you have to say to your team, all right, here are your social media guidelines? I mean, do you have something that's as concrete as that, and do you think it should be implemented in high school at this point?
Well, we talk about it at our team rules, and then, like I said, we do announcements before every single practice. 2:55, we start at 3. We have 5 minutes of announcements. We talk about compliance, NCAA rules, what you can and can't do. Then we talk a lot about social media, and then it gets really brought up when there's a certain topic that comes up, whether it's our president, whether it's something that's happened in college sports or pro sports. And then it's our staff. We're on social media, not because obviously we use it for recruiting purposes and following recruits and following our guys, but we manage what our guys are saying. We know what they're saying. And it's not that we're trying to micromanage our guys, but it's you can't say certain things. So we constantly see what they're posting, and we bring it up to them the next day. They take it, or we'll call them that night. If something's really bad, obviously we'll call them that next night. We go as far as, college. Listen, there's a lot of distractions at college. Nick, you went to Rutgers, you get it. It's a great place. So outside of our season, guys are involved in the college experience. That's fine. That's fine. But, hey, take down that picture. Take down that picture because you got a lot of fans that follow you. Take it down. We go as far as that when it comes to social media. So, kids out at parties and things like that. So you can't be naive. You can't turn your back to what the kids are doing nowadays. And, Snapchat's brought a whole nother level. You see a picture, you see it for a couple seconds, and boom, it's off. But when you send it out, you can screenshot that picture, and it's there forever. And that's, I'm assuming, what happened down at St. Joe's. And here you go. Now there's a mess.
We're talking with Rutgers wrestling coach Scott Goodale. And, Coach, talk to our high school athletes that are listening today and kind of give them some insight on the recruiting process and how involved you are in evaluating a player with their social media. I mean, are you looking at patterns of anything? Like if they seem angry or in any way racially insensitive or insensitive to the LGBT community, anything like that? Politics. What goes into? Do you have somebody on staff that kind of evaluates recruits based on their social media?
We all do. It's part of our jobs. We have 4 guys on staff. Every one of us is involved in that, and it's there's no question when we start recruiting a kid at an early age, freshman, sophomore year, we're following them on their social media and their patterns and their habits and what they're talking about and how they feel. One, it helps your talks when you're recruiting them. It's easy to talk to because you know a little bit more about them, but there's no question it's a red flag, and we've dropped off thousands of recruits.
Really?
Thousands,
wow.
A big number, but a ton of recruits. Social media. Now, if you get a top kid in the country, listen, I'm not going to come on here and say, we're totally off you, but we'll communicate with that recruit. There's some we just won't even get involved in because of it.
Wow.
And then there's others who are obviously some of the best kids in the country. Now we got to kind of reel them in and tone them down and say, listen, just so you know, if Rutgers is a place you really want to be at, we're not going to be into the way you talk and the way you speak. And it goes even further when we get into doing home visits and things like that and how they speak to their parents. And everything you do is looked at. Listen, you're going to be spending 5 years with us. You're a huge part of our culture. You're a huge part of what we're trying to create, our family. And I'll be the first to tell you, our guys have made mistakes on social media, even guys on our roster. They get into it. They get into these rivalries. They get into it with kids from Penn State and Ohio State. And we try not to just let your wrestling do the talking, but just to go back to your question, yeah, it is if you're a kid who's getting recruited and you have dreams or you have a vision, you're going to play college football, wrestling, basketball, that part of your life, you better clean up. And if you think you're not untouchable, you are. So you better be smart with what you're posting on social media.
Coach, I know we can't go too long without talking about the actual wrestling, so I wanted to at least brief the South Jersey folk on what Rutgers is planning this year. Obviously, you have Nick Suriano back at 125 or 133. We still don't exactly know yet. I don't think you might not even know, and he might not even know as well. Anthony Ashnall back off of the injury. Guys coming off your best finish at the NCAA tournament as a team. Suriano obviously a finalist last year. Just kind of a little bit of a broad question. What do you say is the best thing to look out for this Rutgers team here in 2018-19?
Well, you mentioned the 2 guys that we're very top heavy when it comes to that. We have 2 of the best kids in the country that can arguably win national titles, and that's kind of their goals and what we're expecting from them to do is to win a national title. But there's a program right now with a bunch of kids who feel like they should be on the podium at the national tournament, and there's guys that have come very, very close. Nick Ravina, Johnny Van Brill have come very, very close to doing it at the national tournament. And you get 2 guys in the finals, 2 guys can win the tournament, and then you get 2 or 3 others that can make some noise at that tournament, get on the podium. Next thing you know, you're thinking about a trophy at the national tournament, a top 5 finish. And that's kind of where we're at. That's kind of where this program's at. But there's a lot to be done from October 13th till March 20th. So we got to do a lot of things right. We got to get a lot better every single day. I know that's boring and cliche, but that's kind of the phase we're in right now. But on paper, it looks really good, and as long as we stay together and get do things right, no distractions, we'll have a great year.
We're talking with Rutgers wrestling coach Scott Goodale. And Coach, do you subscribe to the Dan Gable practice philosophy of making the guys run the stadium and having the trash cans around?
We do a lot of different things. We're definitely involved in that stadium. We get there every Friday morning at 7 a.m. We train a lot in the stadium, but we do a lot of different types of training, and it's been fun. So, we'll just keep doing it. We'll keep changing it up, make it fun for our guys. And we had a mini triathlon yesterday, very well represented by South Jersey guys. Both Van Brills, Carenti, all made the podium. So that was a big deal for us. So South Jersey well represented in our program right now.
Now, how many guys on the roster can you still take?
It's getting to the point where I'm starting to wrestle guys 157 and down. It's getting better and better. So I'll trade with the other guys, but I only if I'm going to wrestle live, it's probably 157 and down.
Now, I run a high school sports magazine called Glory Days. Did they ever get sick of hearing about your glory days at Jackson?
Yeah, I don't bring up my wrestling days. These guys coming in now have a lot more credentials than I ever had, so I don't bring up. But we do talk high school football. We talk football and the whole OC days and the quarterback days. That's kind of where, that's where I talk my glory days with them.
I went to Lacey, got out in 1990, and the 80s to these guys might as well be a different, 100 years ago.
I know. Hey, Lacey was good back in 1990.
Yeah.
You know that, right? Lacey was really good. Keith Elias, I grew up with Keith, and my wife cheerleaded for that team, 1990.
Oh, really?
So she's a Lacey grad. Yeah, Lacey grad. So that's good. Yep.
Coach, just one more here. Obviously, when you talk about your football days, it's all well and good, but do you find that you miss football that much because you used to be a coach over at Jackson as well, or have you been fully ingrained with wrestling for so long that football is kind of just like the side passion and not so much as you miss it that much?
If I'm speaking really, really honest with you, I absolutely miss the X and O's of football. I love the X and O's of football. I'm so freaked out by this challenge of making Rutgers wrestling one of the best teams in the country that obviously that takes up my whole world, right? But with my son getting back into these Friday nights and playing in a role, a significant role in their program, I'm back in the Friday night. So obviously from a dad's or a coach standpoint, I sit up in the stands by myself and I X and O's and I look at situations we have and what we can do, and that's just me being a coach. But I do miss it. I talk to a lot of coaches from Jackson still. Obviously, I talk to the Toms River North staff. I do miss the X and O's of it, but I'm so freaked out by this challenge and entrenched in what I'm doing every single day because, Nick, as you know, it's an everyday job, right? This wrestling's every day.
Without a doubt, 24/7. And
I love what I do. So, but it's great to be back into Friday nights now that my boy's playing. So. I get my fill, and that's good. And I wake up this morning, I'm so excited to get to practice.
Coach, real quick, super quick before we let you go, what's the best and worst thing about having teenage kids?
Well, I think what we talked about, the social media part and what they're doing and how they're living and what's their lifestyle. You gotta be important. So that's the scary part, right? But if you raise them right, which I think my wife and I have done a decent job of, you hope they make good decisions and everything works out. And probably, that's kind of, and everything they go through from a hormonal standpoint is tough. But the best part is you're bringing these two kids up and you hope they make an impact one day on people's lives. That's really all you can hope for. And that's kind of what we talk about every single day at our dinner table when there is dinner. And, it's a fun thing. It's a fun thing to watch and grow through. And you hope and pray every single day you've done a good job and they can make right decisions.
Well, Coach, best of luck to you and your family going forward, and obviously the wrestling up at Rutgers. We love watching those guys and hearing about them, and best of luck this year. We really appreciate you coming on board. It was great to have your perspective today.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate you having me.
Have a great weekend, Coach.
All right, guys.